internationally acclaimed On Stage with Winford Williams.
At a new time, Saturdays at 8 p.m. on CVM TV.
So much more than entertainment.
Let's delve deep into the issues. We'll take you beneath the surface.
Greetings and salutations. My name is Orville Higgins and it's another edition of Fan Central.
Talking to the people at the heart of the top sporting stories. Hear from your favorite sportsmen and women and the administrators who work tirelessly to make it all happen. It's live sports talk.
I've written an entire article.
Yes.
Looking at all the major issues every Tuesday at 9 p.m. It's
Every dream conquered is another dream gained. I land and I fly again like a jet plane. Headed straight in your direction. 'Cause I'm wiser, one step closer. I'm winning 'cause I work so hard. And the music keeps on playing, and the people that I say we are mash up the dance. Oh, what a feeling! Don't stop dreaming. Keep on believing in the power of the feeling. Whatever you want, take a chance. Song in your heart, step in your dance. You got a spark, don't put it down. Shine your lights Hey, what I want?
Hi, I am Candy Pang.
What a guan?
What a guan?
That a guan, pa.
What a guan? What a guan?
What a guan? Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 8 a.m., 1:30 p.m., and 10 p.m. on CVM TV.
And that's a guan, pa. What a guan?
Three giants of the Premier League. Reigning champions Manchester City.
Brilliant.
Title challengers Arsenal. And perennial giants Chelsea. Your favorite Premier League teams right here on CVM TV. Missed an Arsenal match? Watch the rebroadcast on Arsenal TV. More of a Manchester City fan? No problem. Don't miss a beat with City TV. Supporter of Chelsea? Catch all things from the Blues on Chelsea TV. See it happen right here on CVM TV every Monday at 8 p.m. Let's delve deep into the issues. We'll take you beneath the surface.
Greetings and salutations. My name is Orville Higgins and it's another edition of Fan Central.
Talking to the people at the heart of the top sporting stories. Hear from your favorite sportsmen and women and the administrators who work tirelessly to make it all happen. It's live sports talk.
I've written an entire article.
Yes.
Looking at all the major issues every Tuesday at 9 p.m. It's Fan Central. What is the Popeyes Challenge Cup? The Popeyes Challenge Cup is Jamaica's newest and boldest football competition, featuring David versus Goliath matchups as the best of the best in the country's club football take on those in the second tier of club football. It's a straight knockout competition featuring 25 teams, 7 from the Jamaica Premier League and 18 from the Jamaica Football Championship, the second tier. The 7 JPL teams are invited and are ranked based on their finish in the current season, as they will not enter the competition until after being eliminated from the JPL playoffs. The JFC team seedings are determined based on their rankings in the league as at May 2. Teams will battle it out over 6 rounds to determine the winner. So how does it work? Round 1, the play-in, will feature 14 teams, all from the Jamaica Football Championship. Pot 1 will have 5th to 10th place teams, and Pot 2 will have teams seeded 11th to 18th. Round 2 will have 8 JFC teams, the 7 Round 1 winners, and the 4th ranked JFC team. Pot 1 will have the top 4 ranked JFC teams, and Pot 2 will have the next 4 remaining teams. Round 3 features 6 JFC teams, 4 winners from Round 2, and the 2nd and 3rd place teams, and 6 JPL teams will enter the competition, excluding the JPL champion. Pot 1 will have the top 3 ranked from both JPL and JFC, and Pot 2 will have the others. The next round is the quarterfinals, featuring the 6 winners from round 3, the JPL champion, and the first place from the JFC. It will be a random draw with no pots. Teams then proceed to the semi-finals and the final. Each team will get prize money based on how far they advance in the tournament. A total of $4.75 million in prize money will be paid out, with the winning team taking home $1 million. There's also a $50,000 purse for the top goal scorer and the winning coach. Get ready for the newest and boldest club football competition in Jamaica. This is David versus Goliath. This is the Popeyes Challenge Cup on CVM TV.
The internationally acclaimed On Stage with Winfred Williams.
At a new time, Saturdays at 8 p.m. on CVM TV.
So much more than entertainment.
This time on Small Biz, Big Dreams, we flew the coop to meet someone who brews the soup. This is Small Biz, Big Dreams. Charnette Anderson started Chin's Kitchen in January this year along Whitehall Avenue in St. Andrew. The business offers jerk chicken, soup, fritters, festival, and porridge. A move she says came from a simple decision to take a chance on herself.
I was at the bar with my sister and I said, I need to start a business, and I just say, you know what, I'm going to start jerk chicken and soup since nobody do it on the Whitehall. Yes. And I just get up one week and just buy the things and start. It was amazing. And I come from the community, so most people come and support me because of that. Vehicle pass by soup, by chicken, because as I said, no one on the stretch do it.
During the week, Charnette works as a hairdresser, but on weekends she transforms into a food vendor, building her business one step at a time. She says even without having all the necessary equipment at the start, she remained determined to make it work.
I didn't have nothing, no jerk pan, no nothing. I just said, I'm going to start and borrow a pan, and I went to the man and I just said, hello, I'm going to buy the pan, and he just sell me the pan. I'm just start, buy table, tent, everything. It tastes good, good quality, good customer service. Everything is right. It's rich. It's having peanut, peas, corn, dumpling, cow skin, chicken foot and beef, Irish carrot and everything. It's very rich. In the early hours, I put on like 2, 3, or 4, so I don't want it to stay on the pan and dry out, so that customer could complain. So like when it touched down like 5, 6 o'clock, I would put on more and sprinkle the beer on it as well.
Charnette says community support has helped keep the business going, with customers stopping along the stretch for her soup and jerk chicken. She's encouraging other aspiring entrepreneurs to stay consistent and trust the process.
Just take it on. It's not easy. You won't see the outcome when you just start, but by continue, it will work out. It will come out. You have to come out every week. You can't come out this week, stop next week. No, you have to be consistent with what you're doing. I'm located at 34 Whitehall Avenue, so you can come and buy. Contact Chin's Touch of Beauty or Chin Kingdom on Instagram, and on TikTok, Chin's Touch of Beauty.
Next week, we continue our quest to give small businesses an avenue for success. But until then, for Small Biz, Big Dreams, I'm Kevin Black.
Hi, I am Candy Pang at
Watagwan. Watagwan.
That's a go on, pa.
Watagwan. Watagwan.
Watagwan. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 8 a.m., 1:30 p.m., and 10 p.m. on CVM TV.
And that's a go on, pa. What's a go on?
Every dream conquered is another dream gained. I land and I fly again like a jet plane. Headed straight in your direction, 'cause I'm wiser. One step closer, I'm winning. up the dance. Oh, what a feeling. Don't stop dreaming. Keep on believing in the power of the feeling. Whatever you want, take a chance. Song in your heart, step in your dance. You got a spark, don't fit it down. Shine your lights out.
Tune in to Lead Story, weekdays at 6 p.m. Hosted by Jody Ann Quarry.
Hi, I am Candy Pang at
Watagwan.
Watagwan.
Datagwan pa.
Watagwan. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 8 a.m., 1:30 p.m., and 10 p.m. on CVM TV.
Datagwan pa. Watagwan.
Let's delve deep into the issues. We'll take you beneath the surface.
Greetings and salutations. My name is Orville Higgins, and it's another edition of Fan Central.
Talking to the people at the heart of the top sporting stories. Hear from your favorite sportsmen and women and the administrators who work tirelessly to make it all happen. It's live sports talk.
I've written an entire article.
The internationally acclaimed On Stage with Winfred Williams.
At a new time, Saturdays at 8 p.m. on CVM TV.
So much more than entertainment.
This week on Farming Forward, we're coming to you from. Whoa! Look at that! Real. We're coming to you from Riverdale in St. Catherine, and we'll be talking to that young entrepreneur you just saw. He was picking breadfruits, but I can tell you about the chickens that he's been caring for all these years. He'll be talking to us about real yard chickens. Farming Forward. We're brought to you by Nutrimix. Tell me, Nutrimix. The big feed. The big feed.
Good night and welcome to Lead Story Prime. The storm passed months ago, and however, for many Jamaicans, the recovery still has not. Tonight, the Auditor General's real-time audit of Hurricane Melissa's spending has raised hard questions about billions of dollars in damage, millions in hurricane-related funds, and why some people say they're still waiting for help. The damage figure has now been revised upward to $12.2 billion US, more than half of Jamaica's 2024 economy. And yet, the Auditor General found that some hurricane-related funds remained unspent months after disaster. So tonight, what happens when recovery moves too slowly? What does it mean for the farmers, homeowners, renters, and displaced families still trying to rebuild? And with hurricane season for 2026 only days away and extreme drought now emerging as another climate threat, is Jamaica now more ready today than it was before Melissa? This is Lead Story Prime.
before the next storm? That's what we'll be discussing tonight inside Lead Story Prime. I'm Jodianne Quarry, and we're taking a look at the Auditor General's real-time audit report that has now shown us that there is money still in the kitty. Well, we'll first listen to Amoy Harriet as she takes us through the concerns that have been raised and the real implications for those Jamaicans who have now heard that their recovery is incomplete and those donors who sent money might still not have all those donors' funds spent. Let's now listen to Amoy.
Thank you, Jody. Tonight we begin with the consequences, because when recovery money moves slowly, people don't experience that as a budget issue. They experience it as a life issue. As farmers still trying to replant after losses, as homeowners still waiting to repair damage, as renters forced into unstable housing, as families still displaced or living in temporary conditions months after a storm, and that matters even more tonight, because Jamaica is now only days away from the start of a new hurricane season. At the same time, the country is facing another threatening climate hazard, extreme drought conditions associated with El Nino. So this is not really a conversation about October of last year. It's a conversation about whether Jamaica's recovery system is strong enough for what may come next. Because the Auditor General's real-time audit of Hurricane Melissa spending has exposed hard questions about speed, priority, accountability, and whether recovery reached people fast enough. Tonight, we should note, we invited the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, ODPEM, to join us for a second time since this report was released. They declined our invitation. So tonight, we begin with 5 things this report appears to be telling us about Jamaica's disaster recovery system. First, the human cost of delay. The Auditor General's findings land in a country where some people are still recovering months after Hurricane Melissa. And the consequences of delay are not abstract. They show up in livelihoods interrupted, in homes still waiting for repair, in infrastructure that remains vulnerable, in people who may still not feel secure before another hurricane season begins. And that is the first test of any recovery system. Do people feel recovered? Second, scale. Because the damage estimate from Hurricane Melissa has now been revised upward to approximately $12.2 billion US, equivalent to 56.7% of Jamaica's 2024 gross domestic product. This is not a normal disaster. This is an economic shock, which makes the speed and effectiveness of recovery even more important. When damage is this large, slow execution becomes its own risk. Third, the central contradiction. Now, the Auditor General's real-time audit found hurricane-related donations and barrel funds that remained unspent months after Melissa. That doesn't automatically suggest wrongdoing, but it does force a hard question. If money existed, why were some needs still so visible? Was the problem bureaucracy, targeting, procurement, state capacity, or something else? And that is one of the questions we will test tonight. Fourth, accountability. The report also raises questions about documentation, reporting, and the ability to clearly track some recovery support. And this matters for a simple reason. Climate disasters are increasing. Jamaica will likely need future support, and future support often depends on trust. Can we clearly show what money was used for, what improved, who benefited, and how quickly? And finally, the clock. Because Jamaica is not entering a period of less risk. It's entering a period of more risk. We're days away from the hurricane season, and at the same time, parts of the region are already experiencing intense dry conditions associated with El Nino, raising concerns about water, agriculture, and food security. So the real question tonight is not whether Melissa was bad. We know it was. The question is this: if a major climate shock hit Jamaica tomorrow, would the country respond better? It's back to you, Jody.
Thank you so much, Amoy, for giving us that overview of what it is that we'll be assessing tonight, because the storms that we're talking about looking at before are the storms of 2026 and this hurricane season. Now, the El Nino that Amoy referred to is likely to lead to less tropical storm development, but we've been told that it could be a serious one, leading us into 2027 and leading to significant drought. So, as we talk about the impact that people are feeling right now, the impact of delay months after a disaster like Hurricane Melissa, we're looking to what it says about the system that's responsible for their recovery. Joining me now inside Lead Story Prime, we have Jeanette Calder to join us in a few moments, Executive Director of the Jamaica Accountability Meter Portal. And on the phone right now with us is Dr. Gavin Myers, Executive Director of National Integrity Action. You're on Zoom with us, Gavin. Thank you so very much for joining us, Dr. Myers. So we're making sure that we can continue to hear Dr. Myers as he speaks with us tonight about what is going on, an important discussion for the nation as a real-time audit from the Auditor General has now been released. We have had conversations about this from last week when the report had been issued. Conversations with Senator Marlon Morgan from the Jamaica Labour Party, who also sits on their communications task force. And he expressed to us on Thursday the concerns about this audit being misunderstood as an audit that was talking about misappropriated funds. There is no misappropriation of the funds that has been implicated. However, not spending the funds, only 1.8% of the funds being spent, well, that's a big thing there. Dr. Myers, you're back with us. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, I was hearing you, but I was thinking that, yes, it shows systemic problems.
You start off
yes. Is the lead in our disaster response mechanisms in Jamaica, right? And if there's a failure with that, we have an entire system failure. We call almost a collapse. Hello?
We just want to make it very clear, as well as you say that, to emphasize that point, that we have invited ODPEM onto Lead Story and Lead Story Prime over the past week, inviting them to discuss with us the report and some of the concerns that have been raised, including account management that had been raised by the Auditor General and the spend of not only Hurricane Beryl funds, but also Hurricane Melissa funds. When we invited them onto Lead Story today, they were unable to join us as well. So to that point, Dr. Myers, that importance of ODPEM, the key role that they play in disaster relief and emergency management, is one that requires, it appears, some transparency as well in how their operations take place even before the next hurricane or storm strikes.
Exactly. And what is, I just like to take a little bit to step a little bit broader and talk about state capacity. So if an agency like ODPEM, which is important to emergency response, is its own capacity that over the years we know it has been failing and it has been hollowing out, then what we may end up with is it being captured, or we'll lose the capacity for it to work. And you know, one of the most important things about a democracy or about any governance is for it to work for the citizens, right? So if the citizens don't feel like ODPEM is working, then they're going to put their faith in somewhere else or someone else. And we want Jamaica's state to work because we invest a lot in our state capacity. And we don't want it to just fall by the wayside. And we're saying that this is the canary in the coal mine situation. This canary is weak. So we need to make sure that it doesn't die on us. Very important.
You've made reference to a canary in a coal mine, the idea of an initial warning signal that then speaks to greater problems in the future, Dr. Myers. Do you see something in this report as we have this information before us indicating an exception, or rather a broader pattern of how Jamaica implements things?
You know, it's a part of a broader pattern, and we'll talk about it in several ways. One, and this is most important, where there's executive overreach, and then more than that, where there is accountability systems and the places that we should have had civil servants and technocrats working when they are not in their place, or the committee has not been established, or persons have not been put in place for oversight. So these things that are there to guard and to support the work of the agencies are not in place. And if these aren't in place, and it is not in one agency, it's in several parts of government, you have to question, what are we doing and why are we taking so long to do simple administrative things? And if these administrative things aren't done, then the other things that we need to do for the state to work would not be out of place. So then, if these don't work, then we start complaining that, oh, we're not seeing the government working. Or even worse, you hear someone saying that, okay, these people are spoiling or working against us as the government, and we don't want that. We want to see where the things are working and that we can say we have confidence in the systems of the state.
Confidence in the system of the state is going to be important, especially as we begin the next hurricane season in only a few days.
And dry season too.
And dry season and the El Nino that we've been told about, with our Met Office issuing a release today, a super El Nino likely to happen by the end of this year into 2027. All questions that ask us about our systems. We'll take a break with you, Dr. Gavin Myers, and continue inside Lead Story Prime.
Angela Knight, and my mother, who we call Mumba, she lived to care for her loved ones. So my mom, she has 8 children. She was also a single mother, and even though life was hard at some point, she never gave up. My mother found out that she was sick when she went into the hospital. The pain was so severe on her that they rushed her to A&E, and that's where they started to run tests, and that showed that it was eventually cancer, and from there, everything just went down. So I'm grateful for the decision to take out the Sagicor insurance policy, because my mom was in the process of building her house, and that's where we are going to put the money to carry on our legacy.
Start your journey with a Jane Bank Small Business Loan, with small business loans with as little as $10,000 and up to $4 million.
The time is 8:30.
JampJA.org. Mind your business, JA with Jump Online. Are your business? They keep your government in line.
Use the MP tracker. If you watch on them move, the account meter help them improve.
Take action.
Use the Jump tool.
Track your MP cause they work for you. Mind your business, JA with Jump Online.
Let's monitor government at JampJA.org, funded by the European Union.
Thanks so much for staying with us as we look at Before the Storm, an assessment of the Auditor General's real-time report on spending during Hurricane Melissa, and before that, Hurricane Beryl. And with us tonight to discuss what happens before the start of the next hurricane season and whether Jamaica has systems put in place, having learned lessons from the last one, we have with us Jeanette Calder, Executive Director of the Jamaica Accountability Meter Portal, and Dr. Gavin Myers, Principal Director of National Integrity Action. Jeanette Calder is on with us now. Dr. Myers had spoken to us before the break. Jeanette Calder, let me begin with you as we come back from the break, because so many people, they're watching what has taken place. Is real-time audit shared by the Auditor General. When we find out that money exists, but recovery still feels incomplete, Dr. Myers spoke about state capacity before the break. What does that say to you about state capacity?
Well, it speaks volumes, and I think it is really affirming something that we knew before. I think it's fair to say this is something the government itself has spoken to. It's a term we normally hear expressed as the implementation deficit, which is basically saying government has the money, has the resources, human and certainly financial, allocated money towards achieving a certain objective but failing to do so because there's a deficit in the state's capacity to implement either at the pace or at the quality that it wants to. And we've been having this problem for years, and I think what has happened here partly could be about that implementation deficit. However, let us recall that there has been a response from ODPEM with regards to why they have been so slow in spending that donation money. And they didn't mention a capacity problem. They actually spoke to a governance issue. They spoke to the pace at which they were able to get the Ministry of Finance to respond to requests for allocation of funds. So I think we should take them at their word and not necessarily focus solely on capacity, but that's a governance problem in and of itself.
A governance problem, Jeanette Calder, but one that also had several questions raised in the report because the Auditor General found the National Disaster Fund had no functioning committee, no standalone bank account, no audited accounts for two consecutive financial years. And guidelines, well, those are still in draft, all before Hurricane Melissa struck. So, in your assessment, Jeanette Calder, how long had these gaps existed and why did nobody catch them beforehand so that we didn't have this conversation not just for one hurricane but now for two?
Right. No, that's a really great question, and I'm really glad that you mentioned that it's both Beryl, which I think was 16 months of notice that we needed to get things in place should we have another one, and we did. But I mean, let's just cut straight to the chase. It's how long the gap existed. Auditor General reports almost always, as a rule of thumb, not just our auditor, but auditing as an exercise tends to look back 5 years, Jody. So you can usually bet that if the Auditor General is looking at financial compliance or performance, how is an entity performing, she's looking back 5 years. So I can't say how long this gap has existed beyond the 5 years that the report was looking at it. What I can say is that 5 years is a long time. That's more than one parliamentary term. I think an interesting spin on that question is not so much how long has that gap existed, but for the 5 years that it did, you know, who should have acted on those things that you mentioned a while ago? And it's really important to let the public know that, you know, a very important committee needed to be in place for ODPEM to respond lawfully and efficiently. And let's remember that NARA don't exist as yet, Jody, but it don't mean that in the absence of NARA, the government don't have a legislation and an entity to act on a disaster. ODPEM is there. So the National Disaster Risk Management Act created ODPEM, but it also created what? If you have a disaster, Jody, you know you're going to spend enough money, you know. So the Parliament created a fund called the National Disaster Fund. And if you don't have the committee sitting, then you're not supposed to be able to access the fund. So part of it is that the government, the cabinet this time, and the minister with responsibility, that's local government, did not put a committee in place for the last 2 years, covering that same period of Beryl. So Beryl come, no committee is meeting to deal with it and spend the money. And 16 months later, Jody, Melissa come, and still the cabinet and the minister didn't have what? A committee in place to release the funds that we needed to deal with the situation here. So I would say to the public, it's not just so how long the gap has existed, but without the cabinet and the minister doing that job of putting the people in place, then the decisions cannot be made, the responses cannot be, and the money cannot flow in the way in which it should.
That is going to be so important for many Jamaicans watching right now who are displaced, who are in need. And you both are here talking to us about a report, but this is real people's lives. Dr. Gavin Myers, as we look at real people's lives here with the Auditor General's real-time report, this is important because Jeanette Calder has said it's over a period of time that we often have these reports, but this one is a while it's happening almost sort of report. Not real time in the sense of day by day, but real time in the sense of we can see something while there is still time, some would argue, to address it. When these issues are identified early, what should happen next that often does not as we're watching something like this? Because people are on the ground still saying, I could use some of those donation funds, that 1.4 billion with only 1.8% that had been spent. What do you think makes sense for those people seeing this money unspent but then still having concerns?
You know what is important in this conversation that we need to bring to attention the most important piece for me is how it is that we have not seen the urgency in response in terms of ensuring that the committees, the people who are there act as guardrails, act as the ones to put things in place. How we have not seen the cabinet establish those persons. So ADPEM has moved from Ministry of Local Government now to the Office of the Prime Minister. And we have not seen the committee being put in place. And this is the type of budget that we need.
Yeah.
We have heard from Senator Marlon Morgan when we spoke to him about this last week that there is now some process that's being put in place to put this committee in place and having it up and running. Is this response after the Auditor General's report for you sufficient, or is your position, Dr. Maz, that they should have been done even before Hurricane Melissa, given that the committee had already failed to meet for some time and had now become defunct in between Beryl and Melissa?
You want to sad about that? This is a second real-time audit that has been done around Hurricane Melissa, and the same point has been raised, and the same comment was made when we spoke about the minister and his insertion of himself in the process of getting the communication devices, and said then that this was an important committee. And between then and now, nothing has been in place. The APEM got a new director general, and even with that, we still haven't gotten a committee. Some things, when you don't do something, it show what you have to do. Even with that, Mayor Morgan, even his communication, is saying nothing clear. Something is awry. Well, the money is there, and then to me, we can't put in place a system to spend it. Nah, Minister Morgan, do something more, man. Come on, Minister. We expect you to work, Minister, and we expect you to ensure that the state and the state is able to work. We're not looking for just the government. We're looking for the state to be working, and that all the state powers are not eroded over time. And without the systems in place and without these committees in place, then what you're going to complain about for this, we're going to hear complain about further on. This is attractive. This is something so that I'm just worried.
Well, we consider the concerns that have been raised by you and other members of society, as well as groups that have said that this money being outstanding matters. But the opposition has also weighed in, with Opposition Member of Parliament Ian Hales sending out a video earlier this week talking about the impact on people in his constituency. From his perspective, he has shared this, and we're playing this to you now, something that Mr. Hales has shared on social media as our consideration of not only the institutional concerns that are being raised, but carrying it back to the people who may still be displaced. Let's take a listen to what MP Hales had to say.
The hurricane season starts in 2 weeks. Most of the shelters in Western Jamaica are still without a roof. Most of our churches are still without a roof. Most of our schools are still being repaired, and some not getting repaired at all. Most of the roads are still bad from Hurricane Melissa. Most of you are still without a roof and don't know where the roof will come from. That's what we face. And I say that against the backdrop that the government received $1.4 billion with a B in cash donation from Jamaicans and civil society and donor organization to help you, the people of Jamaica, Western Jamaica. And 7 months later, you're still waiting because the government only spent 26 million out of the 1.4 billion. Most of you still don't have a bed to lay on because the bed got destroyed in Hurricane Melissa. Also, the question is, where do we go from here? And as a member of parliament, I literally can't tell you, because all of you are calling me daily, asking me still where you can get a little help to repair the roof. And the Ministry of Labour has stopped the program in terms of you reporting to get a little help for your roof. And most of you, 100,000 can't help you, or even 500 when you lose everything. And the government responded by saying to you that the government didn't say it was going to do everything. But at least the government could give you a start. Most of the tourism operators, the small tourism operators, still don't get no help yet. Still don't get no help yet. All the shopkeepers that your roof blow off still not get no little help yet. That's what you're faced with. That's what we are faced with. So when you call me and ask me about roof, about where you can get a start, the Ministry of Labour is basically controlling, the government is controlling the program with minimal input from the members of parliament in Western Jamaica.
That's Ian Hales there, Member of Parliament for Western Westmoreland. They're sharing an impassioned plea, one with music in the background there, but one that he says represents what he sees on the ground. We'll continue speaking with Dr. Gavin Myers and Jeanette Calder after the break here inside Lead Story Prime.
Lucozade, bring the energy. Unbeatable taste, new look.
Every day we use our feet to walk, run, and take us places. But your feet can do something even more amazing. Join Guardian Group's Shine 5K Night Run Walk and make a stride to support KPH, the Falmouth Hospital, and Project Star. Saturday, May 23 in Kingston and Saturday, May 30 in Montego Bay. Register at run2shineja.com or runningeventsja.com and see you at Guardian Group's Shine 5K Night Run Walk.
Watagwan. Watagwan.
That's a guan pa.
Watagwan. Watagwan.
Watagwan. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 8 a.m., 1:30 p.m., and 10 p.m. on CVM TV.
That's a guan pa. Watagwan.
Welcome back to Before the Storm inside Lead Story Prime, as we're only days away from the 2026 Atlantic hurricane season. Jeanette Calder, Executive Director of the Jamaica Accountability Meter Portal, and Dr. Gavin Myers, Principal Director of National Integrity Action, continue to be with us. Jeanette Calder, watching the situation that we have here right now, the government has positioned one body, NARA, the National Reconstruction and Resilience Authority, as the institutional answer to the failures that the audit identifies. You, though, were one of those people who raised concerns during the NARA debate about the absence of an audit committee. So, does this fix the problems that you see, or does it just continue them, but now at scale?
Yeah, I think it's definitely the latter. If I understand the question, Judy, you're raising NARA and whether or not NARA is going to be able to, let's say, address some of these governance issues that
I am not doing so. The government has positioned NARA as the answer to these governance issues, indicating that they are the institutional answer to some of the concerns that have been raised in the Auditor General's report. Do you understand NARA to be that answer, or do you see it as exacerbating the problem now at scale?
And I find that extraordinary because I didn't recognize, and for all the attention that I have been paying to this, I didn't understand that the government had ever indicated that NARA was going to address any governance gaps. I thought it was very clear to everyone, including the government, that NARA was going to create governance gaps. What I thought the government was sharing with the public with strong conviction is that for what is happening in the West, for the situation that MP Hales just told us the country is facing, I thought the government's argument was we will have to put up with, we will have to see with them with regarding the governance gaps and the governance problems it will create for the sake of speed, for the sake of responsiveness. That's my understanding, and I would definitely say NARA is going to create governance problems, but let us look more specifically at what you're saying here, Jody. What are the issues? Let's be direct. Let us look at some of the governance issues that came from the report and ask ourselves, based on all we have heard from NARA, will it address it or will it exacerbate it? So, okay, fine. We have a situation where funds are sitting idle, low utilization, 1.8%. And as I said before, ODPEM provided a release, and the release did not say that we have a capacity or we couldn't move fast enough, which is what NARA is supposed to address. It says it was because of the absence of authorization from the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service that contributed to this slow response. Is NARA going to change that? I don't see anything in the law addressing it. We look at the matter of a financial institution receiving donations, that financial institution holding on to $64 million. The Auditor General says, listen, I'm not even going to take issue with $64 million being held on to, but the point is, you were supposed to release it within X amount of days. It has gone as far as 85 days. People could have done with that money. Why didn't ODPEM follow up on that, Jody, is the question the Auditor General is asking. Is NARA going to fix the problem where public officials who should be getting up every morning and making decisions that are obviously, I have an agreement with this bank, the bank is collecting the donations, they're holding on to some for a period, but they must release it so we can use it. Will NARA fix that? I'm saying I don't believe so. Let me give you a third one. Is NARA going to fix the fact that construction materials was delivered, hundreds of millions of dollars, and we found in the case of one supplier, I can't remember the exact percentage, but about 80% of the construction material collected, there could be found no paper trail to indicate who got it. Or people are supposed to have their roofs repaired, and there is nothing to substantiate what is the criteria for this roof versus that roof. And Jody, no proof at the end of the day as to whose roof got repaired. Is NARA going to fix that? There is nothing in the legislation that indicates that it will, and I'll close off by saying this. Why we think it is going to exacerbate it is these problems should happen under a NARA. What we do not have is the kind of board sitting, providing the kind of oversight that can raise a red flag and say, hold on a minute. Why are we doing this? Why isn't that happening? Why aren't you following that procedure? Which is what a governance board does. So we are saying, in the absence of an audit committee, in the absence of a governance committee, we believe these things are going to recur, and there will nobody there to catch it in time until later on, if the real-time audit continues, or less we hear it after the horse done gone through the gate. That's my take on that, Jody.
This is distressing then for many Jamaicans who are watching and seeing that these funds had been donated. Well-wishers, both in country and overseas, had made these contributions, and they aren't seeing then the benefit of that spend. Dr. Myers, to you first. We're 11 days from the start of the 2026 Atlantic hurricane season. More than $1 billion in donated relief funds remains unspent. People are still in shelters or shelter-like conditions where they're not in schools but they're not at their homes either. The Met Service has warned of drought. That's today's release from the Met Service. We have that discussion about the super El Nino, and the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, ODPEM, has declined to now address this show publicly after repeated attempts to come on. What's the one thing then, what do you consider to be the single most urgent reform that we need to see to happen before June 1st so that we don't have something like this recur in the next year?
The committees that are there that we need for these to move has to be first. So the cabinet has this within their powers to do. Mr. Morgan needs to stop telling us that it should be done or will be done. It can be done tomorrow morning, as far as we know. But we want to know what is happening there. That's the first. The second thing, is very important, is that there has been an erosion of the systems of ODPEM from stem to branch and from right down to the roots. So that type of rebuilding of the structures of the state needs to be there, because if we don't have that, then we're going to have to be dependent on elected officials or better yet, on systems that are focused only on elected officials and their say-so. And that is not a long-term system, and that is not something that can be sustainable. We don't want it to have persons who are just dependent on elected officials. We don't want it to be just focused on how things are going based upon the say-so, the good say-so of persons. We want these persons to know that we're not dependent only on them, but rather on the systems of government that ought to work, need to work, and must work.
Ought to work, need to work, and must work. That's something that persons will have to take into the next hurricane season. For you, Jeanette Calder, what's the one thing before we close that you believe 11 days to go before the hurricane season needs to change in order for us to do better if there's a next time around?
But I think I have to agree with Gavin. I want to really be clear to the public. It's not that we don't have legislation in place to assist us. NARA is not here yet. And June 1 is around the corner, and NARA is not going to be in place by June 1. So I do want to reassure the public that the ODPEM that I know in decades past, using this legislation that created it, was capable of operating more efficiently than I'm seeing it now. So ODPEM needs to work for us. It needs to be allowed to work. And the first thing is to get the money flowing. Therefore, Gavin is correct. That National Disaster Fund Committee needs to be put in place. The cabinet, with the help of the minister, that would be Desmond McKenzie, need to appoint that committee. If that committee is not in place, then a whole heap of unlawful things continue to happen. Right now, the Auditor General told us in the February report that $350 million was unlawfully taken from that account because there is no committee. No money not supposed to run, but if it's running unlawfully. So I'm saying, line up yourself, let that committee be appointed, and that same legislation, the existing National Disaster Management Act, says there's supposed to be a National Disaster Response Coordination Plan. So Jody, I want to know if that plan is in place or not. And if that plan is not in place, since ODPEM is what we currently have, since this legislation is what we have to get that plan ready for June 1. We have to get the committee ready. And I think I want to close by just reminding Jamaica that I do have a governance concern that I want to speak to right before we wrap. The Prime Minister of Jamaica took over ODPEM, I think, last year, and there were concerns about that. The reason I had a concern is not because I don't think that Mr. Holness superintending it directly would not be able to do a good job per se, but I'm keenly aware of the fact that the Prime Minister has 39 agencies that he has responsibility for. 35 are public bodies, and they are resource intensive. UDC, NHT, Ports Authority of Jamaica, they're huge. So 35 public bodies reporting to him, including 4 executive agencies. And then you have the ministry itself, Economic Growth and Infrastructure Development, Cabinet and ODPEM, Cabinet and OPM. So when the Prime Minister took on ODPEM, I was concerned for all that he has under his care. I believe what we have seen so far suggests that it is too much, and I am suggesting, with all the respect that I can, that perhaps it should go back directly under the care of a minister that has less responsibility. Please note that the Prime Minister is the chair of the Council of the National Disaster Risk Management that has also not sat. He's also the head of the cabinet that is a part of appointing the fund committee that has not been appointed.
And so each of these things are governance failures that you are saying are happening because perhaps his hands are too full as he looks at all of these various things.
It's one of my recommendations, Jody,
and that's a big one that we can take with us into June 1 as we look at what's going on in Jamaica. Dr. Gavin Myers, Principal Director of National Integrity Action, and Jeanette Calder, Executive Director of the Jamaica Accountability Meter Portal. That's all the time we have for today's show this evening.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so very much for joining us inside Lead Story. I'm Jody Ann Quarry, and on behalf of the entire CVM production team, thank you for watching Lead Story Prime. Have a fantastic evening, and I hope you stay safe. Up next, Fan Central.
The internationally acclaimed On Stage with Winfred Williams.
At a new time, Saturdays at 8 p.m. on CVM TV.
So much more than entertainment.
Hi, I am Candy Pang.
What a guan? What a guan?
That a guan, pa. What a guan? What a guan?
What a guan! Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 8 a.m., 1:30 p.m., and 10 p.m. on CVM TV.